Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Ruben Amorim slams his attack and also silently, well, not too subtly, I don't think, slams Sir Jim Ratcliffe's youth policy on transfers. Absolutely tore it apart when asked about Alanga and how you don't get time at Manchester United, and yet United keep obsessing. Even this morning, we're linked to another 19-year-old. What are we meant to do? Take our tops off and run around the bloody garden? We need bloody experience, and Amorim exposed that last night. Also, heavily linked to Liam DELAP on a £40 million deal. Is DELAP the answer, or is he not good enough? I nearly said crap, that would have been too far. I think he's a good player. I don't know whether it's what Man United need, but we'll expel the truth about DELAP. Some people are talking about he's scored 10 goals for a relegation side. Yeah, Charlie Austin scored 18. Should we have signed him 10 years ago? Shut up with your stupid stats. There's 30 years of Premier League history, and just because you've scored 10 goals for a bloody relegation side doesn't mean you're bloody Alan Shearer. So let's talk about that. Also, Garnacho, where's he going? Chelsea. Has he already checked out? Has the disruption from January already checked Garnacho out? Why is he being so selfish? Why won't he learn to pass? We'll talk about all that as well. And we've been linked to Simmons. And of course, there's plenty to get into from last night. Look, I'll put my hands up and say, tackle him! Tackle him! That's all. You know what? I've got so many people I grew up with from Nottingham who clearly aren't Man United fans and are sending me WhatsApps. And all I'm getting is, tackle him, tackle him. Well, they should have bloody tackled him, shouldn't they? So I don't know why people are taking the piss. We should have tackled him. But it's me at the brunt of it again, because somebody can't bloody take a tackle. I'd have took the yellow card. That's what I would have done. Also, I think Amorim got it wrong on Xerxes. You watch the game last night, you take it in, you give your player ratings, everything like that. I woke up this morning and I'm always going to defend Ruben Amorim. But the Xerxes thing didn't work. Putting Xerxes up front and Bruno at 10 didn't work, cost us half the game. We should have had Xerxes at 10 and Bruno at 8, and that was a mistake. And apparently he did it for tactics. So, what about Maguire at centre forward? Oh, don't get me started on the XG shit. Do you want me to dispel that one as well? I mean, Harry Maguire is one of the best headers of the ball in the world. You stick him up front in the last 5 minutes. Amorim even said why he did it. We'll talk about that in a bit as well. But first of all, let's get into it. We're linked to Liam DELAP for £40 million. Chris Wheeler's spoken about that. But more importantly, I think that what needs to be said here is that, and Ruben Amorim sort of spoke about it, but you have been speaking about it for weeks. We have been speaking about it for weeks. Some people out there, they hear about let's sign this youth wonder kid, let's sign this youth wonder kid, let's sign this youth wonder kid, and they get all bloody excited like they're playing a FIFA career mode with a 10-year contract. This is Manchester United. No one gets any bloody time. Whether you're 20 years of age or you're a manager, you don't get time. So why are people getting so bloody excited? Last night I heard people going, oh, Yoro. Pretty much established, pretty much everyone would say Yoro, very good potential centre-back. Oh, could be here for the next 5 to 10 years. Oh, what a player he's going to be. Yeah, what probably happens with Yoro is he becomes one of the world's best centre-backs in 3 years' time and then pisses off to Madrid on profit. Yeah, oh, that sounds great to me. You've got people online going, oh, we've got a centre-back there who could be one of the best in the world in about 3 years, and then he'll be here for 10 years. Oh, will he? Will he really? Is that written in stone then? Can I get that, can we get that watertight contract that he's here for the next 10 years and we're not going to sell him for profit? It's all about future. And Amorim was asked about this and he absolutely nailed it. He was asked about the performance last night and he said, we did well to the final third and then we lacked quality. We've got to improve in the final third. And I said last night, I'm really bored. I'm really bored of United at the moment because I've seen this movie so many times. And can I just say, talking about movies, rest in peace, Val Kilmer. Heat is one of my favourite films. He's brilliant in Tombstone. Sadly passed away. I know it's not football related, but Heat is one of my favourite films. If you know, you know. But look, talking about movies, this ain't Heat. This isn't The Departed. This isn't Jaws. This is rubbish. I'm bored of this film that I'm watching with Manchester United. And Amorim is absolutely spot on. We are terrible in the final third. I can't even remember when we were good in the final third. We're terrible against the low block. And it was proven last night. So Amorim's absolutely correct. We did well on possession, we did well to the final third, and then we lacked quality. Nottingham Forest scored in the 5th minute. We had 90 minutes to score, and we couldn't do it, and we couldn't break them down, and we have to talk about why that was. But he was asked about Elanga. He said Elanga's scored a good goal, but he's got to be stopped. And ultimately, he was asked about... You'll see a lot of prats this morning writing articles about whether Man United should have let Elanga go. This is what Ruben Amorim said. He said, look, I'm not here to talk about players that are no longer at Man United anymore. You can talk about whether the club should have sold them, but they had their chance. It's not like they didn't have their chance. They had their chance. And it's the same with Rashford. It's the same with Sancho. It's the same with Anthony. It's the same with Elanga. They had their chance. And whether they got long enough, well, that's up for debate. But Amorim said they had their chance. And, you know, everybody wants time, but you don't get time at Manchester United. I won't get time at Manchester United. Yeah, you want to have the time, but you won't get it. And he said these players had their chance. They didn't take it. And they've gone to other clubs where the expectation and pressure isn't there. And they get the time and they become good players. But at Manchester United, rightly or wrongly, you get a chance. If you don't take it, you won't get time. I won't get time. And we need to build a base that allows these young players to get time. And he absolutely nailed every point perfectly. Because what he's basically saying is what you've been saying. We can't keep buying young players. Look at Garnacho. Look at Mainu. They're 19 and 20 and people want to sell them. That's the point. There's people in this chat this morning saying, get rid of Garnacho, he's not good enough. Look at the age of Elanga. If Garnacho goes to Napoli or Chelsea, in 3 years' time, you'll be saying we shouldn't have sold him. But at the moment, you're saying sell him. And the same thing happened with Elanga. If I could be asked, I could go back to when Elanga was here and Ten Hag was using him and people were going, he ain't good enough, he ain't never going to be good enough. I remember, I've got the receipts. I probably said it myself. I remember it vividly. And that's it. We can't be bloody hypocrites. We can't sit here this morning going, we shouldn't let Elanga go, when everybody said we should. He ain't good enough. But Amorim's nailed it. He won't get time. Elanga didn't get time. Garnacho won't get time. Mainu won't get time because the base isn't there to give them time. So when people are going, did we make a mistake? As I said last night, we didn't make a mistake. Elanga wasn't the player he is now 3 years ago or 2 years ago. He's gone to Forest in a lower pressure environment where he's allowed to take his time and develop, and he's become the player he can be. He never would have come that at United. He never would have had the platform. He never would have got the patience, and he never would have had the confidence. He wouldn't be the player he is now. And that's what Amorim's talking about. You need the base for these young players to thrive. I don't think Amorim sat there this morning angry with Garnacho, angry with Rasmus, angry with any young Dorgu or anybody. I think he knows the reality of football. He needs the base for those players. He needs to go with Dorgu. You've had a bad game there. Luke Shaw's playing on Saturday. You just take a bit of a rest. I'll give you 10 minutes. But he can't. You'll have to start him in the Manchester derby. You'll have to start him against Lyon. And he might have a bad game because he's 20. There is no base for these players. It's sink or swim. There's no armbands. You chuck them in. If you swim, well done. You've got to do that now for the next 10 years. If you sink, you're shit. You're drowned. And that's Manchester United. And I've been saying this and you've been saying it for ages. And Amorim's spot on. And what I loved about what he said is Elanga had his chance. Rashford's had his chance. And whether they got long enough or not, they've had their chance. And I won't get long. And whether I should get long or not, I won't. So this is Manchester United. Welcome to Manchester United. Whether you like it or not, you don't get long enough. Or you do get long enough, whatever. The only way we change that is by building a base. Now, you've got Sir Jim Radcliffe talking about Liam Delap instead of Gyökeres. You know, you've got Sir Jim Radcliffe talking about a 19-year-old from Braga instead of Frimpong. You know, you've got Sir Jim Radcliffe talking about an 18-year-old midfielder instead of Edison. You know, we're probably looking at a 19-year-old attacking midfielder instead of Cunha. We're probably looking at a 20-year-old goalkeeper instead of Costa. That's not the base. And Amorim spoke about it in the press conference, and he spoke about it after the game yesterday. If we want these young players to develop, they develop between 19 and 23, not between 20 and, 20 and a half. They need 3 or 4 years to develop. We can't give them that because the club won't give the base. They won't give the base to the manager, which is why we're stuck in a 3-year cycle, and they won't give the base to the players. We've got this preposterous situation at Man United where we're writing people off at 19 and 20 because they're playing every week, and if they have a bad game, they're shit. I remember Beckham. I remember Scholes. I remember Giggs. I know what happens. They have good games. They have bad periods. They're young. Dorgu's performance last night, don't care. It was bad. I don't care. He's 20. He's only been here for 2 months. He's going to have good games, bad games, probably for the next 2 years. But you won't be able to put up with that because there is no patience at this football club. And when Amorim talks about a base, he's talking about Gyökeres. He's talking about Trincao. He's talking about Frimpong. He's talking about more experienced players. Because we have got experience, De Ligt, Bruno, Mazraoui, but it's not enough. They played last night and it's not enough. We need more than that. We need more than 3 or 4. We need about 6 or 7. We should have 6 or 7 experienced players with 3 or 4 young players. And what's United's policy for the summer? More young players. We're just going to burn them. Can you imagine next season if we bring 3 or 4 more young players in with what we've already got and we get beat by Forest home and away again? Do you think people are going to sit there after 10 years of shit and go, you know what, it's fine. The stadium's coming at some point in the next 50 years. It's fine. We need a strong base. Amorim is absolutely spot on. John says criticism is warranted, but come on, who's pulling on in these potential players' heads in? The answer is no one. We need experience in key positions. Thank you, John. And Patrick Lynch with a super chat says it's clear that as a team and as a squad, we're clearly in a transition stage in terms of tactics and style of play. Several players are going to leave. The summer is vital to get right. Amorim is right. We need experience. I think Patrick nails it so many mornings. You're absolutely spot on, Patrick. Everybody's absolutely spot on who agrees with that because you know what? I actually think, honestly, last night we were okay in many aspects in relation to moving the ball, but we didn't score. He needs to change these players. He's got a system that will work, but he's got players that won't work in that system. So he needs players. The big red flag is the players he needs are the Frimpongs, the Edisons, the Gyökeres, the Cunhas. He needs those types of players. He's going to get kids, and that won't work. We're going to add to an inexperienced team more inexperience, and that's not going to work. It just won't work. We're crying out for experience, and that's my worry at the moment. For all the people who are saying, you know, I know we lost, Mark, but there were signs of positivity. I do agree. But if I try and think about the positivity, I get whacked around the face like a wet fish with the negativity of what the transfer plan is. Everybody we're looking at is a kid coming into a pressure cook environment with no experience. I need experience in that team. Now, let's talk about some of the latest news that's coming in because Chris Wheeler put this out last night and, it is a news show, but it feeds nicely into what we're talking about. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, of course. Manchester United have held more discussions internally over a potential move to sign Liam DELAP. His release clause when Ipswich get relegated is around £40 million. We'll talk about Garnacho, of course. There is a story around him. Just adding to that, Osimhen is on United's radar and the move could involve a swap deal with Garnacho. I don't understand how that swap deal works because book value of a youth player is 0 and United need money, but that's not what we're here to talk about. This Liam DELAP story concerns me because all I see in that article is £40 million. That's all I'm seeing. £40 million. And I'm thinking, oh, Kieran, football friend, Kieran, could we get DELAP on a £40 million deal, but we'll pay you £8 million a year for 5 years? Basically costs us nothing. Football friend. You know, I think this is all about money. It's not about here's one of the best players in the world, potentially. This is about a striker who might score goals, who's 40 million quid. And I'm looking at the market and I'm going, Victor Osimhen, Isak, Gyökeres, I know Isak's not realistic, but Osimhen and Gyökeres, yeah. And we're going Liam DELAP. And I'm just looking at it and I'm going, in no way, shape or form does this make me feel excited about next season. And I like Liam DELAP, you know, I like the player, but is that what we need? If you're Liverpool or, I don't know, if you're Aston Villa, actually, you might look at Liam DELAP and go, that works for us. That works for us. But for Manchester United, it doesn't work. Because at Aston Villa, you've got Ollie Watkins experience, you've got John McGinn experience, you've got experience throughout that team, sprinkled with a bit of youth. So a 22-year-old striker who scored some goals in the Premier League, who can sit on the bench and understudy Ollie Watkins, that works for Villa. But for Man United, it doesn't work because we're full of inexperience. We need a bit of experience. So people will go, well, if he's good enough for Villa, he's good enough for us. Well, he's not. Of course he's not, because that profile of player fits their squad where it doesn't really fit ours. I saw somebody last night talking about his stats and saying, oh, people saying we shouldn't go for DELAP, we should go for Gyökeres. The DELAP's got so much potential. He's scored 10 goals already in a relegation side. Can I just read you some stats out? Right. Liam DELAP's got 10 goals in 28 games, yeah, as a newly promoted striker. Every one of these names I'm going to read you are newly promoted strikers. Charlie Austin, 10 years ago, got promoted with QPR, got relegated with QPR, scored 18 goals. That's nearly double what Liam DELAP has at the moment. And okay, Liam DELAP's got 9 more games to go, but Charlie Austin scored 18 goals. Should we have signed Charlie Austin 10 years ago? What about Odion Ighalo in the following season? He scored 16 goals for Watford when they got promoted. Should we have signed him as well? At what point did we forget that just because you score double figures in the Premier League, it doesn't mean you're the next Alan Shearer? Like Ipswich, 10 goals, they're going to get relegated. Charlie Austin scored 18. Ighalo scored 16. Should we have signed them? Just because they've scored a few goals in the Premier League doesn't mean you should sign them. Marcus Stewart, Andy Johnson at Crystal Palace, Kevin Phillips, Darren Bent. You know, there's plenty of people that have scored goals from the Championship in the Premier League that Man United shouldn't have signed. So, you know, I think you know what it is? I think it's the hipster generation. I think it's the TikTok generation. I think they go, oh, 10 goals in a relegation side. Just do a bit of research. Lots of people have done this. It doesn't mean he's the next Alan Shearer. Also, I had a little look at Liam DELAP actually, because for me, what I need in a striker is goal conversion. What I need in a striker is how many shots per 90 is he having. So I had a quick look at this. Goal conversion this season, best striker in the league, didn't even play yesterday. Chris Wood, 63%. 36%. 63% would be crazy. So he scores 36% of his chances. Second place, Isak scores 29% of his chances. Interestingly, Strand Larsen at Wolves is third, best striker in the league for goal conversion with 26%. Mbumo, not surprisingly, is fourth with 25%. Mateta is joint fourth with 25%. Moreno is already up to 22% as Arsenal's make-do striker. Then it's Wizza, then it's Haaland, then it's Beto, then it's Havertz, then it's Pedro, then it's Watkins, then it's Welbeck, then it's Darwin Núñez, then it's DELAP, who is joint with Alanga on a 17% goal conversion rate. But how many shots per 90 does he get? Because obviously he might be working off scraps. Haaland has 3.2 shots per game. Jimenez at Fulham has 3.2 shots per game. Cunha at Wolves has 3 shots per game. So, you know, there's maybe a hidden stat with him because his goal conversion rate is 16%. Watkins has 2.8 shots per game. Nicholas Jackson has 2.8 shots per game. Evan Nilsson at Bournemouth has 2.6 shots per game, as does Isak. Beto 2.4. DELAP is 2.2 shots per game, which puts him about level with Darwin Núñez. So he does get service. I can't even find a Man United striker, actually. Somebody just said, can you tell us what about United strikers? Oh, God. Bruv. Rasmus Højlund gets 1.05 shots per game. And Xerxes gets 1.3 shots per game. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. So look, you know, I look at Liam DELAP and I go, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see why we need another striker with a similar profile to Rasmus and a similar age to Rasmus. I don't see what that does. I don't see that being I think what Man United need, and I think what Amorim's talking about, Man United need now. They need now, not in 3 years. And we need now. We need experience now. And you know what? Let's talk about Garnacho. Chelsea this morning linked to Garnacho. Get your comments in, by the way. We're going to be a little bit all over the place. But Chelsea, according to iPaper Sport, could revisit a move for Garnacho this summer. Napoli also keen. I do want to talk about Garnacho. But you know what? I'll tell you this for free. You'd do it. I'd do it. When I used to play football, if I was, let's go back to when I was probably 15, 16, was the best period of my career, really, because I played for a really good school team, a really good Sunday team, and that's when I had my trials. So I played in a team there that had some really good players in it. And if we had somebody that was what you did, somebody who's coming through and they kept shooting, they'd get told to pass. If it happened in a Liverpool side, they'd get told to pass. You look at United and you look at Garnacho, and he has to take responsibility. I like Garnacho. I really, really do. But he has to he's got to stop doing what he's doing in relation to the selfishness. But why is no one telling him to stop it? Why is nobody grabbing hold of him and saying, stop doing what you're doing? And I'll tell you for free, if you've got Gyökeres or Victor Osimhen in that team next season, and Garnacho's in that team next season, or Ahmad or whoever, and they keep shooting, Gyökeres or Osimhen are going to go over and go, mate, I'm 26, 27, I've done it at the highest level, and I'm here to prove myself in the Premier League. This is the hardest league in the world. And if I'm going to prove myself, I need service. And if you ain't going to fucking give me service, we're going to have a problem. And it will get sorted very, very quickly. But at United, Garnacho, I think, looks at Xerxes, Rasmus, Dorgu, and goes, why should I pass? Who are you? You know better than me. Why should I pass? And I see it. I saw it last night, and I haven't wanted to say it because I like Garnacho as a player, and I really do believe if we sell him, he could end up in 3 or 4 years really, really good player. But I watched it last night, and I'm like, he doesn't believe he needs to pass to Rasmus or Xerxes or Dorgu. He doesn't believe. He does sometimes, but he doesn't believe he has to do it. He will take shots from areas he shouldn't shoot from when a simple pass is on. Now, he will not get away with that with different players around him. They won't let him do it. They won't. They won't. Victor Osimhen would walk over to him after one game and he would say, or Harry Kane, or whoever, Robert's in the chat, so let's get him excited. We're not going to sign Harry Kane. But if you had an experienced striker, a Lewandowski, a Harry Kane, a Gyökeres, an Osimhen, they would walk over to him and say, and they'd make him look foolish. They'd do it in front of the cameras, and they'd do it in the dressing room as well, and they'd make sure Amorim knew about it, and they would say, mate, you're fucking disrespecting me. I'm here to score goals, to win us games of football, and you ain't giving me the ball. So we're not winning games of football, and you're making me look a mug. And I'm not here to look a mug. Now, you're either in the team or you're not. You either fucking pass me the ball. If you shoot again from some stupid area, we're going to have problems. And that becomes a problem that Amorim has to solve. And that's a problem that everybody sees. And I've seen people like Rasmus and Xerxes get really angry going like this because they're not getting the ball. And I've seen people online saying they shouldn't be doing that. They should be doing that because it highlights the guy who's not playing the pass. And, last night was too far. Too far. And I'm a big fan of Garnacho, and I will defend Garnacho here. I think he's got a very, very high ceiling. But it's getting silly now. That's not pre-season against the MLS All-Stars where you want to score in a goal in America for the American fans. That is, we're in the bottom half of the table. We're playing absolute shit this season. We're 1-0 down. We've got loads of the ball, and you're shooting consistently. And that, to me, needs to stop. And this is why we need more experience, because there is Bruno there. He's the captain. There is DELAP there. There is Mazraoui there. There is experience there. But it's not making a difference in that area of the pitch in the final third. Now, is Bruno in the final third? He's the closest there. He's probably got a lot on his plate. DELAP, Mazraoui are defenders. I see Yoro doing well. I saw Heaven doing well. You know, defensively, we're quite good. But I don't see the attack doing well because it's too inexperienced, and I think there's no authority there. If Garnacho has that attitude, then he needs to go, says Daz. Said it before, Garnacho is not good enough and doesn't get any better. He lacks the maturity and ability need to sell before his value drops even lower, says Class of 92. Let's just run a poll on this, actually, because I did mean to set this up. Would you sell Garnacho? Now, while you're voting on that, I'm not going to wait because I think I know which way this is going to go. I wouldn't sell Garnacho, right? I think there is a really good player there. He's 20, 21 in the summer. We're talking about selling Elanga was a mistake, and yet in 2 years' time, Garnacho could be a really, really good player. I think the problem is that most people will say sell Garnacho, and at the moment he's not playing very well, and I completely agree with that, and maybe we're going to sell him in the summer, and maybe he already knows that, and maybe he's playing for himself instead of the team because he doesn't feel part of the team. That could be part of the issue, 100%. But tell me this, are we not hypocrites saying sell Garnacho, and then we're saying we shouldn't have sold Elanga? Like Elanga is that couple of years older, and he's doing quite well. So I think that to me is something that I would consider. And I also think that when I look at it, I also would think about how if we had the right environment with what I'm basically saying is if we had Garnacho in 2008, he'd be a better player than he is in 2025. If we had Garnacho in 99, he'd be a better player than he is in 2025. Because he wouldn't be in the starting lineup. Like, Sir Alex Ferguson wouldn't put up with that. Ronaldo wouldn't put up with that. Rooney wouldn't put up with that. Giggs wouldn't put up with that. Andy Cole wouldn't put up with that. You know, Roy Keane wouldn't put up with that. Michael Carrick wouldn't put up with that. Paul Scholes wouldn't put up with that. So I'm just very conscious of it's the morning after a game where everyone wants to pile in on an individual. And I get that. And in a way, it's not wrong. But also, he wasn't the only reason we didn't win the game last night. And also, there is a bigger issue here. You know, like some people were talking about system last night. System's not the problem. Players are the problem. And the way the club is run is the problem. And I look at Mainu, and I look at Dorgu, and I look at Rasmus, and I look at Garnacho, and I look at Xerxes, and I look at those 5 players, and I think if those 5 players were at Arsenal or Liverpool, they'd be better players because they probably wouldn't be starting. And if they did some of the things they did in a Liverpool or Arsenal shirt, they'd be on the bench and they'd learn from it and they'd become more disciplined and more team ethic. These players are sinking because our focus is on a youth strategy for the future. I think Garnacho actually symbolises Man United's problem crystal clear. Very, very good young potential player who is playing like he's Saka or Salah. He's got to perform every single week at 21 or 20, right? And this is the plan that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has. But we need to bench those players. We need to sub those players. They need to be left out. When they have a game like last night, they should be off at half-time, not playing 90 minutes or the next game. And that's the problem. He will start in the derby because there is nobody else. And that's the problem with all our players. We've got no replacements for these young kids. We're asking 20-year-olds to be 27. The strategy just doesn't work for me. It really, really doesn't. But look, actually, it is a new show. Is Garnacho going to go in the summer? There's every chance he could go in the summer. We tried to sell him in January. He knows that. Is he now playing for himself because he knows he's looking for a move in the summer? I don't know. Sell Garnacho to buy Gyökeres, says Tony. If selling Garnacho means getting Gyökeres and keeping means cheap DELAP, I would sell, says Dazzo. Why sell Garnacho when there's so many other players that need to go before him? He'll be another Elanga, but an even better article. Deluded, says Liam. I wouldn't sell him, and I think that's a fair point, but I also wouldn't sell him because of what I was just talking about there. It worries me. It really worries me that we're burning young players because we're expecting too much from them. Even Ahmad at 22 shouldn't be the star player of the team. We need more. I mean, 25, 26 isn't even young. You're almost ancient in that team. De Ligt's 25, which, you know, you're acting like he's Van Dijk, experience-wise, but a 25-year-old in a United side. I mean, Mazraoui's thought of as old. He's 26. There's just nowhere near enough experience in that team at all. Simply Red says, you have an idea of the player you would like Garnacho to be, but it's an illusion. Look at the maturity of players like Yamal and even Heaven. They're younger. I think that's a bad take, mate. Heaven's played about 5 minutes, and he's playing at the back with people like De Ligt and Maguire and Mazraoui. Yamal plays for Barcelona with a lot of experience around him as well. Garnacho is playing in a team where basically the expectation is for him to do something every game. You're feeding my point. I think all our young players would be better if we added 2 or 3 experienced players in. Garnacho shouldn't be a starter as Michael. Should have an experienced winger and use Garnacho as a sub. It's as easy as that. I agree. He needs an older brother to be better a team, says John. I think they all do. I think Rasmus needs an experienced striker. I think Garnacho and Ahmad need an experienced number 10. I think Mainu and Collier need an experienced midfielder, which was meant to be Casemiro, but he's fell off too much. But at the back, I think they've got that. I don't think it's any surprise that Heaven and Yoro are developing quite well when they've got people like De Ligt, Mazraoui and Maguire with them, and Martinez when he's fit. But up front, we're not developing well because, that's it for me. That's the mic drop. Defensively, we've been quite good because there are some experienced players there to help the younger players. Offensively, we've been bloody terrible, and there is no experience up there to help the younger players. And helping younger players is also telling them off as well. So Gareth Southgate, what's your thoughts on Harry having more XG in 6 minutes yesterday than Højlund in the last 15 games? I'm glad you brought this up, Sir Gareth Southgate. I think that this is statistics for morons, basically. And I'll explain why. So somebody put out a tweet last night that Harry Maguire's XG in the last 6 minutes of the game yesterday was higher than Rasmus's in the last 15 games, yeah? I just spoke about a stat there that he gets 1 shot per game, Rasmus, and Xerxes gets 1 shot per game. Shots on target this season in the Premier League, Rasmus is 5th. Strand Larsen at Wolves, shots on target, 73%. Chris Wood, 63%. Erling Haaland, 58%. Joint with Beto on 58%. And then in 5th place, Rasmus with 52%. So 52% of his shots are on target, but he only gets 1 shot per game. There is a lack of service. It's the same for Xerxes. I can't believe in the modern game somebody would seriously talk about Harry Maguire's XG being better than Rasmus and Xerxes on 6 minutes. I can't believe people would take a 6-minute period as a fair XG anyway. But did anyone listen to what Amorim said yesterday? He said, I threw Harry Maguire on because we couldn't create chances. So I thought in the last few minutes, let's get some high balls into the box with somebody who is good in the air. Harry Maguire is, and I've always said this, the best aerial player in the Premier League. Best at winning headers in the Premier League. So if you start putting crosses into the box for somebody who's the best header of the ball in the Premier League, he's going to win them. So what is this XG thing about? Was Harry Maguire sprinting down the wing, taking people on and shooting from 20 yards in the bottom corner? He was winning fucking headers. And he's very, very good at it. So I don't even understand that stat. It's a stat for idiots. Because anybody with a brain goes, well, I know why his XG's high, because we're lumping the ball in the box like Stoke and he's good at winning the air. Are we going to, should we play that? Or should we put Harry Maguire up front? And then somebody will say, well, no, it just proves that Rasmus is crap. Okay, let's put Osimhen up front against Forest, and he won't have the XG that Harry Maguire had because Osimhen isn't as good in the air as Harry Maguire, and we're not going to loft long balls into the box. The big problem at Man United is we could only create chances by throwing long balls into the box for our centre-back. The big problem with Man United last night is we created nothing for Rasmus in the second half and nothing for Xerxes in the first half because our attack was selfish. And that goes back to what we were just talking about with Garnacho. Or you could sell Garnacho and buy someone with the brains, as Tony Martial, do the same for the majority of the attack and see us play better. Tweeted it last night. Gyökeres and Cunha solve Man United problems instantly, very quickly. I'm not saying it puts us in the top 4, but you know what? We've all got opinions, and some opinions are strange, and some opinions are hot takes, and some opinions are dreadful, and some of them are insightful. But I'm telling you now, it's doable, and it's there. Gyökeres and Cunha, striker and number 10, changes that team instantly. We go from there to there. And they're both available. But what are we trying to do? Oh, there's a 19-year-old who plays for Como. Oh, Liam DELAP from Ipswich. Wilcox is a big admirer. I don't care if Jason Wilcox wants to stake his bloody reputation on Liam DELAP. Nobody can tell me a 22-year-old from fucking Ipswich is as good as going for Osimhen or Gyökeres. And nobody who is even trying to convince you about that believes it either. They just want to, knock one out to Sir Jim's plan and, try and be supportive of Sir Jim's plan, which I get. But there are 2 strikers out there who are perfect for us, and we're looking at kids. If Garnacho has that attitude, then he needs to go. Thank you very much from that. I think we've read those. Ben Jones PT says Man United should look at free signings. Mere, Mitchell, Bertola, Gomez. I don't agree, Ben, because you're just doing cheap things. I don't agree we should be looking at free transfers. It's just a strategy for cheap. Was looking forward to football during the break. Actually thought we could turn up for the rest of the games. Now want season to end. Lost hope for the rest of it. Still got Europa League, simply read. Not taking 50 million for Garnacho in January is the biggest fumble I've ever seen. He's awful. He cannot. We'll get that, mate. Music. We'll still get that money. We'll still get that money in January. We'll still get that money in the summer. And the problem is, there's a lot of people this morning waking up with hindsight glasses on. Alanga wouldn't be the player he is today at Man United if we kept him, because we wouldn't have developed him and he wouldn't have got the patience. So it's a dead argument. Garnacho, if we'd sold him in January, we were going to get 45 million. That was the highest bid, and we wouldn't have spent it. So we can sell him for the summer for the same money with more interest, and we've still got a winger, whereas we wouldn't have had one. Osimhen's a god in the air, says Flo. We need 2 creative players who can play behind the number 9, and we need an experienced number 9, says Razvan. I've done that one from John as well. Osimhen's a god in the air. We need to remember Garnacho had an interaction on camera telling him to be better and score more. That kind of thing sticks in a young player. It's not an excuse, but these things affect players. Yeah. Again, I'm not a big fan of this. Football players shouldn't be influenced by social media, but kids will be. And again, it's just another flaw in Sir Jim Radcliffe's plan. 18, 19, 20-year-olds have grown up with TikTok and Twitter and YouTube and everything else, and they're on it a lot, and they're influenced by it a lot, and they're not mature enough. This is the whole point. Man United's problem is some of our better players are nowhere near maturity. And we need more maturity in that team. We really do. I mean, it's not even a debate. You look at that Liverpool side, how much experience has it got? Alisson, Salah, Van Dijk, Trent, Diaz, McAllister, Konate's quite experienced, Andy Robertson. You look at the Arsenal side, Raya, Ben White, Saliba is actually quite experienced for a young player now. Gabriel, Declan Rice, Odegaard, Saka, Havertz. They're all very experienced players. Man United haven't even really got 5. And then, it's just not. In Man City's team is awash with experience. Garnacho always performs when he's had competition. Now that Mount is back, he'll step up. Let's stop going after our academy player. We will wait and see. I do like that comment from Parser, by the way. I don't mind having a conversation about underperforming players. Like Dorgu underperformed last night. Garnacho definitely did. Xerxes did. But what I would also say is we're very likely to step it up for the next 2 games because Lyon matters and it's a Manchester derby. We're very likely to step it up. I think our next loss will be Newcastle away. But also, it wasn't just Garnacho yesterday. Like, there was a lot of underperforming players as well. So I don't like it when it gets pinned on one player. And also, let's not forget that we have got, hopefully, over 10 games left if we do well in the Europa League. And we don't have Ahmad, and we don't have the transfer market. So we need Garnacho. We need Dorgu. We need Xerxes. We need Rasmus. We need these players to perform. Because our season, whether you like it or not, is very different if we don't win the Europa League. So we need to, we can have a conversation about these players. We can say that they didn't perform well. We can even talk about, in the summer, I'd be thinking about doing this, that, and the other. But we can't just throw them under the bus now and say, piss off. Like, that is just strange behaviour from me. I don't understand that type of behaviour. We do need these players to respond. And if I was Ruben Amorim and on Garnacho, it simply would be, why aren't you passing here? Get the video out. Why didn't you pass here? Why didn't you pass here? Why did you shoot here? Why did you shoot here? And, yeah. John says, Alanga is the example that we don't give time. Exactly. But you know what, John? I'll defend you here. Not John specifically. But Amorim said this as well. For Alanga to be the player he is today at Man United, we'd have to go back in time when he was getting game time under Ten Hag and people were saying he's not good enough. He's got to be sold. So we don't sell him to Forest. Ten Hag says, I'm not selling him to Forest. I'm keeping him and I'm going to keep playing him. He just had 6 months where he was playing quite regularly and most fans were saying he just ain't it. So we keep him and we play him, and under that pressure of he's not good enough, he doesn't get any better and his whole career falls apart. Like, I know it's easy to go, we shouldn't have done it, but for me it's just very logical that we should, because people had made their mind up on Alanga and he was never going to get the patience and time that he's got at Forest. So I sometimes think there's really good analysis and I think sometimes there's unfair analysis, and I don't see Alanga as a mistake, because I remember loads of people were saying he just ain't it. And when he played for Man United, he didn't look like it. And he wasn't going to get that time. The only thing we could have done with Alanga is loan him to Nottingham Forest. And then maybe he'd have developed. But certainly, you're not going to get that time at United. Look, we've literally just spent 10 minutes of people writing off Garnacho. Last week, Mainu at 19. Literally was talking about Mainu yesterday and people were saying I'd cash in. He's 19. And then the same people want to say we shouldn't have sold Alanga. And it's like, you can't get your head around it. So you were saying sell Alanga because he wasn't good enough. Goes to Forest, does well. And then you want to pretend that he would have been good enough here. Whilst yesterday you were saying sell Mainu and today you're selling Garnacho. The way I look at it is, Sir Jim Radcliffe is trying to sell cheap, young policy. I'm sat here saying, Sir Jim, who was the last young player that we actually developed to a consistent first-team player? It's not happening because the team is underperforming and we haven't got an environment for young players to develop. But you're telling us this is the way you want to go. And yet people want to sell Mainu and Garnacho. Look at the young players that are here to develop and people want to sell them and you want to bring more in. Are you just not switched on up here? Are you not reading the room? You want more Garnachos and Mainus and people are debating whether we should sell them. And the reason they're debating whether we should sell them is because they're not performing well. But you want to bring more of those potential young players in and you think they will perform any better. The reason they're not performing well, or a factor, is because they're expected to perform week in, week out at 19 and 20. It's unrealistic. We need more experience. We don't need more Liam DELAP is just Rasmus. The lad from Braga is just another Ahmad. It's like development. Probably need to loan him out. Leon from Paraguay, how many years? Like we need players for now, definitely. Smitty says, you've been banging on for months about how a top-level number 9 isn't the answer to our problems because of the lack of service. We can't buy Gyökeres and 4 or 5 others as well. No, Smitty, look, the problems at Manchester United are complex and deep and plentiful. But Osimhen is not the answer and Gyökeres is not the answer. But they're more of an answer than Liam Delap. They're a start. If you put Gyökeres up front last night or Lewandowski up front last night, maybe because they are top-level strikers, they produce something out of nothing that a Rasmus or a Xerxes can't. Maybe. But that might not happen, and ultimately they do need service. So, yeah, we do need an experienced striker, but they're not going to pull goals out of thin air. They're going to need service. But my point is, Gyökeres, Osimhen, speaking to Garnacho in his performance last night, are going to get a better response than Xerxes and Rasmus, who I don't think Garnacho feels he needs to pass to. Whereas with an experienced striker, they'll bollock him. And if he tries to bite back, he's going to lose because they're going to go, mate, look at yourself. You might have great potential, but where is it? You know, we need some experience in that team, especially in the attacking unit. There's no experience in the attack. And, you know, I saw people trying to pin this on Bruno. Bruno's not an attacker, really. He's not. He's the captain, and he maybe has to take some responsibility. But his responsibility is not the front three. He is not a striker, and he is not the 2 number 10s. He, you know, maybe in the first half, but I think that was a tactical mistake. And I just want to talk about that as well. Harvey says a whole new attack unit is needed. And Nicholas says Radcliffe to do what Chelsea have done, sign young players and hope someone does good for us. But, yeah, look, it'd be wrong of me not to do this, even though it's a news show. We've got one more story to talk about, actually. It'd be wrong of me not to talk about this. I like Amorim. I want Amorim to do well. There's so many reasons to not really be on Amorim's case for last night, and we've spoke about a lot of them. And I think he's twice in the last 24 hours hinted strongly that he doesn't agree with the youth policy transfer, because all he's going to get is young players, and that's not going to give him time. But last night he got it wrong. He said before the game he was using Xerxes up front and Bruno as a number 10 for a tactical reason because he felt it worked well against Forest. It was he got that wrong. I was hoping he did it because Rasmus was injured. He did it for tactical reasons. It didn't work. Xerxes is better as a 10. Bruno is better deeper. That didn't work. He got it wrong, and that's on the manager. And that's all I'm going to say. Because I think people say, you're so far at Amorim's arse. He got that wrong. He got it wrong. Xerxes is not a number 9. It doesn't suit him as a number 9. He is a 10. And Bruno, I think he's suited deeper as well. Ultimately, that didn't cost us the game, but it didn't work. It didn't work. Osimhen is the best player in the air in all of Europe, says Bobby. And thank you very much for that. One more story to bring you. It's actually from Fabrizio. I don't know what you think about this. I did see this morning. Somebody's mentioned it. United have had scouts watching Diao, who plays for Como and is a winger, 19. Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal and Chelsea are all very well informed on developments around Xavi Simons. He could be available for 60 million. Sources believe the Premier League could be a credible possible destination. That's coming in from Fabrizio Romano. Chris Wheeler is also talking about Chelsea, Sancho and Dortmund as well. I mean, I suppose that impacts us slightly because he's still technically a Manchester United player. In relation to Xavi Simons, he is older than 21, so I would look at that. He'd also fit in to the look. I would take Xavi Simons. I said this last summer. I would take him. Do I believe it? Well, for a start, he's over 21. For a start, he's over 40 million quid, and I think those two at the moment are the two barriers. But what pisses me off is I can see United buying teenagers as number 10s and strikers, and I can see Arsenal buying Gyökeres and Cunha. And I look at that and I go, forget Liverpool, forget Man City, forget Chelsea, forget everybody else. If Arsenal get Gyökeres and Cunha to what they've already got, where are Arsenal going for the next 5 years? Like, I don't see them going anywhere. It's tough. Watch Garnacho win as the Europa League and watch what happens with all the haters, says Bjorn. I think you've got to be very careful. We've got to be very, very careful. I mean, before the international break, Bruno was back, Rasmus scored goals, and you know, everyone who's criticising them suddenly has to go, well, you know, you can do that every week. We have an international break. We have a few players that play badly, and people want to sell them again. But we're playing Lyon in a week. That's the big game. If these, you know, if Dorgu and Rasmus and Garnacho and Bruno and everybody plays really well against Lyon, people will forget last night. So that's what I mean. There are conversations. Of course there are conversations. But I wouldn't take it to the extent that these players are shit, let's get rid of them. You know, we've got big games to come. Do we need a left foot centre-back with Martinez's ACL? Yoro's much better on the left. I think we should look for a right centre-back or central and slide DELAP to the right, says Ravel Burns. We do need a centre-back, but I'd go young in that area because you have got Maguire for another year. Martinez will probably be back next year. DELAP's already there. Mazraoui's there. Yoro's there. I ain't got a problem with the centre-backs. The goal yesterday wasn't a centre-back issue, really. I haven't got a problem with our defence. It's the midfield, the number 10s and the attack and the width that United need work on, and the goalkeeper. Thanks everyone for watching. 62% of you would sell Garnacho, 38% of you wouldn't. I'd go with the 38%, but for the reasons we've already discussed. We're back at 2 o'clock. It's Wednesday today, so it's a 7 o'clock show tonight because I've got watch-alongs on That's Football, Villa, Brighton, Liverpool, Everton. So it's 7 o'clock tonight. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Get your comments in as always. I'll speak to you on the next one. Take care, stay safe, have a great day.